Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Eh,
How you doing today?
So far, so good.
I like your background today.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know where I got that. It's kind of cool. I've tried to learn how to take those with my camera, but so far have not figured it out.
It's just darkness with mine. My phone is like 7 years old. So
Yeah. Well, I've got a DSLR and it has the ability to take those supposedly, but I think there's certain times of the year where it's likely to be above where you're standing, this Milky Way, and I think you have to do it at certain times of the night and all that kind of stuff. But right now,
Before we start today, could you expand on the students that are attached to the program? Is it like a class credit thing? Or what type of projects are they usually taking care of?
well, this program is basically opened up to small rural businesses is really the target, and the majority of them are either brand new or they're trying to pivot from an existing business that by going online and trying to figure out how to sell how to sell online basically, and so majority of the people are small rural businesses. Most of them are in eastern North Carolina for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah. We've had a pretty wide variety. Our last class, we had 12 farms that were, that's kind of before their busy time, I guess. So a lot of farms are faced with going direct to consumer after, a lot of the restaurants went out of business or dramatically cut back on what they ordered. Um, so just different audiences, different times of the year. We started this for the first time last September was our very first class, and that was all Pitt County around ECU, and that was mostly recent graduates who were starting e-commerce businesses so that they didn't have to go to the big city and get a job. At least that's my interpretation. So we've had lots of different types. How did you guys find us?
I found you on Twitter.
Hmm.
I've started looking at, because when we did the NC Idea Seed, I started looking at who do they follow. And so that led me to a lot of different organizations. And when I saw that your program was open, that's when I reached out to see if you were accepting any others.
Oh, cool. Are you guys near Ashboro?
I don't think so. We're closer to Charlotte,
Okay.
the north end of Charlotte.
Yeah, Ashboro, I think is somewhere near Charlotte. I'm not 100% sure. It might be closer to Statesville, but they have a program there also that's funded by NC Idea, and they are they are a little bit different. They seem to work a lot with small business resource centers or whatever they're called. They're at I think all of the counties have something like that, or I know the community colleges and the universities have that. Um, and I think we work quite a bit with them. And we're actually talking about possibly working together in some way to reach more people. And most of the other accelerators don't have the focus that we have on e-commerce and selling online. Most of them are, at least from what I can tell, they seem to be more about how to set up your books, how to kind of basic, incorporate or not incorporate, all that kind of level stuff, which we don't go into at all, mostly because I don't know it. But there's lots of people who do that. There are a lot of resources to help people at that level. I believe in these rural areas that e-commerce is a great equalizer, that people will be able to compete even though they are in a small rural area. We had a speaker prior. He was the CEO of Etsy, a guy named Chad Dickerson, and he was really interesting. He's a native of Greenville, as it turned out, but he was the first CEO of Etsy, and he took them from 4 million in sales to 440 million in sales. So in about 7 years. But one of the things he said that I thought was really cool was he said that when he got started, he felt like he had to go to Silicon Valley to have a chance to participate in the digital kind of stuff that was going on. He was a computer science major at NC State. But he feels that's no longer true, that now that it's such that you can start really anywhere. It has halfway decent internet, and there's no reason why you have to go to San Francisco or any other big city in order to make a go of it. So I found that to be very encouraging. One thing I think that he didn't really think about is access to technical help. You know, in a lot of the bigger cities or whatever, there's more in the way of you know, programmers, developers, people who know how to do technology. So I think that's more of a challenge in the rural areas than I think people realize. You know, I think there's a lot of sentiment that, hey, just set up a website and start selling stuff online. Like, you know, it's really trivial and easy to do. And as we all know, that's not the case. And in many cases, in our very first class, we had 14 companies and we surveyed them, and 13 of the 14 had no technical help of any kind, no access. So I think that's the biggest problem. And it's one of the reasons I like Code the Dream so much, is because they're trying to remedy that. They're actually training people from these small towns in rural areas to become developers and so forth. And so I think it's just really, it's almost like literacy was in previous generations. I think to be digitally literate is a skill that everyone really needs in this day and age. And a lot of our traditional educational outlets, they're not digitally literate. They don't know how to do any of this stuff. It's not in a lot of curriculum that I've seen. So hopefully, you know, stuff like what we're doing and Code the Dream and others, we will be able to get some people to get some traction and you know, if you're able to grow your business and you can impact your rural area where you live by hiring people or whatever, that's, to me, that's the same as economic development. It is economic development. It's exactly what economic development is intended to do. So I'm hoping that we can do that. And we've had some traction on that. We've had some companies from our first class. We have one that has bought their own building, an 8,000 square foot building, and hired 18 people full time. We have another one who is in the process of hiring 4 people and renting space. So it'll happen, I think, over time. At least I hope it will.
Dennis, the problem is nobody wants to work.
Well,
Nobody wants to work right now.
Well, it depends on what you know, what the job is. Like in my experience here at ECU, you know, I work with a lot of kids and they want to work, but they want to work in the area that they've either studied for or that they want to do. So most of the time that means leaving the area, you know, unfortunately.
That's right.
Going
That's
to
right.
a city or whatever, you know, that's been what I've seen. So, you know, it's, you know, like, for example, in the School of Entrepreneurship, which ECU is the only undergraduate entrepreneurship degree program in the state of North Carolina, believe it or not. So a lot of those kids actually want to go into corporate finance. They want to go into money management or you know, working for a bank or whatever. And so they almost by definition have to leave the area to do that. And you know, it's just it's the way it is. But I think if we get some people who are successful out of these rural areas and become kind of a model, I think you'll see more kids taking a look at that. You know, and our very first class, which was limited to Pitt County by NC IDEA, that was their requirement. Of the 14 companies, 12 were people who had graduated within the last year. So they were all trying to do something in the area and really creative stuff. We have one woman who this is, people think I'm doing crack when I tell this story, but I swear to God, I'm not exaggerating. She goes out into the woods and finds interesting insects and plants, and then brings them back to her garage and puts copper on them and sells them as jewelry. And so she's, last time I checked with her, she was grossing 12,000 a month, selling in all 50 states and 8 foreign countries, and just rocking it. I mean, just rocking it.
And she was doing what?
She was taking plants and insects that she found interesting in the woods and covered them in copper and turned them into jewelry. So there you go. Yeah, a little
Small
different.
thing.
And then we have
Little
another
things.
guy, another one. This guy's one of my favorites. So when he was at ECU, he walked into a party at a fraternity, and he had a hat on that his dad had given him, which was from, I think it was from NC State championship in the 80s or something of some kind. And the guy looked at him and said, "I'll give you $50 for that hat." And he said, "It'll give me 100 and I'll give it to you." So the guy gave him $100 and he gave him the hat. So then he set up a website where he goes around to Goodwill and all these places and gets logoed athletic stuff from the past. It could be a shirt that says Super Bowl, Green Bay Packers, or whatever. And last year he did 350,000 in sales online, selling stuff that he found at Goodwill. So,
Wow.
what can I say? I mean, they're very creative stuff going on. And, he sells all over the world, all over the world. So anyway, something to think about.
I'm having a wrong look.
All right, so what I'm going to do today is we're going to go through one of the TechStars programs about positioning your product or service. So this is a lot like branding that we've talked about, how you position your brand, how you position your product. So this I think you'll enjoy. It's a series of videos, and they do have a workshop also that's available online. Should you decide to, you want to pursue it. So hold on here. Let's see if I can figure this out. With any luck. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay. One thing I've noticed about these Techstar guys is a lot of them are pretty ugly. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if there's something there. So this guy is David Mandel. He's a Techstars guy. He's been through. He's acquired. I'm sorry. He started a couple companies. He sold them. He worked for Deloitte Consulting, which some of you might be familiar with, and he's currently an entrepreneur in residence for Techstars. So we're going to start with some of the things that he pitches. When I say pitching, literally the pitch. And even though the pitch sometimes is thought of as related to getting investors or otherwise, it also applies to communicating to people what in the hell you are doing, right? What are you all about? So the pitch is a big part of what this guy's talking about. So here we go.
I'm David Mandel. I am the founder and CEO of Pivot Desk. We help entrepreneurs find room to grow their businesses. We went through Techstars in 2012 here in Boulder, and have been busting our asses to try and grow the business ever since. Prior to doing startups, Pivot Desk was actually my 4th startup, but prior to doing startups, most of my career was actually marketing, PR, communications in Manhattan. A couple of agencies, worked for a couple of really big firms, a couple of really big clients. So I have some background in messaging, positioning, and pitching, and that kind of thing. Now, you guys, I know, haven't gotten deep into the pitch yet. Some of you probably think you're okay at it because we've gone through some mentor meetings and I've heard them, but trust me, you suck. And you suck just because no one's really told you the right way to pitch your business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Inherent in the pitch is a lot of things that we'll get into. This is not just about pitching a demo day. And that's like the biggest point I want to make here, right? Like, demo day is a single day event. what we're going to talk about today is how you're going to pitch your business for the rest of your career in this business. And I joke around a lot, but I'm actually dead serious. If you're the CEO or any senior executive at a startup, and someone breaks into your house or apartment at 3 a.m, breaks you rests you up on the shoulders and says, "What do? You sit up and you pitch." Right? And if you can't do that, you don't have the pitch down. You will be so goddamn sick of this pitch, but that's okay. That's how it should be, because no one else has heard it. Right? You've heard it over and over and over. But remember, you've got to get out of your own shorts. Right? People aren't here listening to you every day. They've never heard it. So you've got to have it down. It's got to be reactionary. It's got to be ingrained. And you've got to keep iterating on it. So it's a very, very important thing. And I'll get into some of the reasons why as we kind of go forward. So why is the pitch critical? The pitch does a couple of things for your business, right? And a lot of the feedback I get from Techstars companies when I talk to them earlier on in the program is, I don't worry about my pitch yet. I got to grow my business. I got to hire a dev. I got to build out the database. I've got to find customers. I've got to show growth. Like, don't fucking bug me about the pitch yet. And you're missing a really big point. The pitch is critical because, by a show of hands here in this room, how many people have too much money? How many people have too many resources? How many people have too much time and just don't know what to do with it? Right? None of you. Every single one of you is resource constrained, money constrained, people constrained. The only real weapon you have is focus. Focusing everything you do have in one direction at one goal. Because as soon as you start spreading resources, you're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're losing ground in the fight. The first thing the pitch does is keep you and your entire company focused. By having a good pitch, which is clear about why you're doing what you're doing, where you're going, why people should care, why you're different, why you're better, everybody that comes into work that day at your company knows exactly why they're doing what they're doing, what they should be doing, and what the goal is. And if something comes up on the roadmap that isn't critical to that goal, they can make a decision and understand they shouldn't be wasting their time there. So the pitch is really important to keep you focused. The second thing it does is it helps you test your business. If you think you've nailed the pitch and no one's reacting, you haven't nailed the business. So you need to keep figuring out what's right and what's wrong. Right? So this is a lot more than getting up on stage and pitching at demo day. This is about keeping your business focused, moving forward in a very specific way, and helping you drive success in your company. Do we understand that? Because that's really important, because I always get this, "Oh, don't bug me about the pitch." And then I sit down with the team, like, "What do you guys do?" It's like, "Well, here's what we do, and we do this." And then I ask another, it's like, "Well, we kind of do this too," and like we kind of bullshit, right? You all have to be the same. And everyone in your company should know the pitch. Everyone. This is not just about the person that's pitching the business.
I do want to make one point that Techstars, the way they work is their purpose of their accelerator. At the end of the accelerator, every participant has to do a pitch day or a demo day, and that's usually recorded live, and that's actually goes out to thousands of investors all around the world to watch that pitch and to listen. And I can provide you access to some of those pitches. I have some access to some, but it's a really important part of a venture-funded startup. Okay, this is about making sure you understand what the pain points are.
So let's get into like the first big lesson about pitching in startups. And this, like, if you remember one thing from this talk, remember this: nobody gives a shit what you do. You think it's really cool. You're in your office every day building shit and doing cool stuff. Nobody gives a shit what you do. They only care about how you're going to help them. And this is like, I can tell you 99.9% of the startups I talk to do this wrong. Said, hey, tell me about your business. It's like, well, we're a connected network of interplanetary social, local, mobile applications that helps you evolve data from here to here. And I don't give a fuck. That's what you do. I don't care what you do. What I care about is how you're going to help me. Why are you going to make my life different? Don't ever tell me what you do. Tell me why I should care, and I'll give you an example. So Pivot Desk is a technology-enabled real estate platform that handles monthly financial and communication transactions between leaseholders and tenants. That's what we do. It's exactly what we do every day. How interesting is that? Someone asked me, what's Pivot Desk? Come on.
What's Pivot Desk?
Thanks for asking. Real estate is static. Businesses are dynamic. When you're out there busting your ass to build your business, the last thing you want to do is bet your business on a 5-year lease when you don't even know how big you're going to be 5 months from now. Pivot Desk helps you grow your business the way it should grow, not the way real estate dictates, by helping you either share your extra space with a company that needs it, or finding the right space for now without committing to a long-term lease. Understand the difference?
I think that's pretty good.
Nobody gives a shit what you do. They care about why you're going to make their life better. So inherent in that is emotion. Nobody buys because of logic. They buy because of emotion. They justify the purchase with logic. So start with emotion. If you cannot open up an emotional window in your target audience's mind, they will not care about you. What that does is gives you the permission to go deeper. You have to understand their pain. Really, businesses are built on pain and making pain go away. So until you can open that emotional window, understand their pain and understand what they're dealing with, they won't give you the permission to go deeper. Once they feel an emotional connection with what you're doing, then they're more than happy to say, okay, cool, tell me how that works. How do I do this? How do I get involved? Or how are you better than this? Right now you have an opportunity to talk more and to go deeper and to really connect with who your audience is. So like, I know the pain of my audience. We talked about the entrepreneurial pain just now, right? But there's a lot of other constituents in who we serve, right? There's brokers, there's landlords. I know every single one of their pain. And I know how to communicate with them. And I'll give you a great, like, real example that you'll get in a second. So we were invited, CBRE in LA hosted an event for all like real estate tech companies to come set up little booths, and then everyone had like a 90-second pitch to talk about what they were doing for all their brokers. And it was probably 60 or 70 brokers. And it was just a big line of CEOs like getting up and doing their 90-second pitch. And I was, I think, 14th or 15th in line. And you could tell, like, after the third or fourth person, every single broker in the audience was like this. Just sitting on their phone, doing their email, completely numb to what was going on. And I saw this, I'm like, oh, good, this is gonna suck. So I gotta like do something different. So I get up there, and before I start my pitch, say, hey, I'm David Mandel, I'm the CEO of Pivot Desk. I started Pivot Desk because I fucking hate real estate. Every single broker stood up, put their phone down, and started listening. I said, I hate real estate because it puts you between a rock and a hard place when you're trying to help customers. You spend your life stuck between a static infrastructure and dynamic companies and trying to fit those two together, not making anybody happy, struggling with both sides. What I want to do is give you a tool, a solution that lets you help your customers in a way that you become their partner, not a salesperson. and still helps you close the leases that your landlords are demanding. And then everybody listened. So you understand the difference of emotion? I went right for their pain point. I shocked them, and they went right for their pain point. And that's why they gave me the permission to talk more about what it is I do. Otherwise, no one, not a single person in that audience would have remembered who we were. Yes.
So really, you have a set of pitches that are context sensitive. So when you were talking about making sure everybody in your company knows your pitch, do they all have to have all of those and know when to use the right one, or
I have one pitch. I start it a little differently based on who I'm talking to. But I know how you deal every day trying to help customers between the, that's why Pivot Desk works. We help companies grow their business the way it should grow. But so we go right into the same pitch every time. But think of it this way, you need one pitch that works for every audience. You may start it off slightly differently depending on who you're talking to, but it's the same damn pitch. And once you're finished, you can go in either direction you want. The pitch is all about connecting and getting the opportunity to say more.
so with your target and the different constituents, I guess obviously you were able to find a commonality between us poor bastards who are trying to rent space and the people who are trying to take our money.
Yeah. I could start without any different intro, regardless of who my audience is. And I do this often, like when I talk at either startup conferences or real estate conferences as a broker, it's the same pitch. It works for every single one of them because they all understand the pain of the ecosystem that they live in. They have different motivations, and that's what I go to afterwards. But it's always the same pitch.
So I think that what he's talking about here is really getting a clear understanding of how your product or service deals with the pain point of the customer. And it doesn't have to be, I don't think, quite so dramatic, depending on what your product or service is. Maybe it's not as emotional as it is for this guy. But I think it is interesting that he tries to cut through the logic and get to the emotion to get people to listen to him. And I think that's really important.
So let's talk about the actual meat of how this works. Right. So this is the positioning framework. Who's your target audience? What's their pain? What's your value prop? Who are your competitors? And what's your differentiation? You have to know these things about your business. You have to be able to very, very specifically define each of these things. And when I say specifically, I mean specifically. I talk to a lot of companies like, who's your target market? It's like, well, this is kind of cool for everyone. Like if you're trying to sell to everyone, you're not going to sell to anyone. You don't have the marketing budget, the bandwidth, the time to try and sell anything to everyone. Pick who they are. Understand their pain. Understand why they care, why they should care. What's your real value prop? Competitors. When I say competitors, it doesn't necessarily have to be another business that does what you do or close to what you do. Your competitors could be time on your phone. It could be hanging out with your kid. Like, what are the things distracting people? Or what are the other things people will be doing except other than using your product or service? So understand what you're competing with and differentiation. Why are you better? Why should they care? So let's go actually think it through. So these are the sentences you should be writing. Once you get these down, this becomes your positioning. I don't mean verbatim, right? So you heard me talk about Pivot Desk before. I didn't say this, but all of this was in there, right? You have to know this first. So who's your target audience? Very specifically. Entrepreneurs trying to figure out where to put their business. Brokers trying to close deals for companies that they can't help or couldn't help before or are frustrated. Right? Very, very specific. pain, don't want to commit to a long-term lease, or are trying desperately to find a space that works for both their customer and their landlord. Tired of signing leases that aren't good for their business. Like, what is their specific pain that you're addressing? Value prop. We help you grow your business the way it should grow, not the way real estate dictates. We help you find solutions for customers you could never help before. We help you become their partner instead of a salesperson. As opposed to the traditional way, where you have to bet your business on a lease that you have no idea is right for your business, or you have to risk pissing off a customer or client because they end up in a bad lease, or you have to say no to somebody because you can't help them in the traditional option. We look at it differently. We provide a matching marketplace that helps you find space for companies that can't sign a lease yet, or helps you help your companies that signed a long-term lease and have no idea when they're going to need all of it by finding the right companies for them to share that space with. Right, and I'll go deeper, but you have to have these answers as specifically as possible to understand your business. If you can't answer any of these right now, you need to figure it out. Remember, this is not your pitch, but this is the basis, the framework, the whole foundation of your pitch. Until you know these things, you cannot get up and pitch well.
Okay, this is the last video, and then there is worksheets available, which we're not going to go over today, but you'll be able to access those if you want to go through these in more detail.
Finally, this isn't easy. People want to do this quickly. They're going to leave this meeting and you're going to write your positioning down and you say, okay, I'm done. You're not. This takes a lot of work, a lot of iteration, a lot of testing. Once you think you have it down, start pitching people. See their reaction. Is it resonating with them? Is it clicking? Are you making your point, or are they left with a quizzical look on their face? Or do they say, oh, that's kind of cool, and then they walk away because they don't really give a shit. They just don't want to insult you. When they look at you, when you pitch, are they saying, oh, I get that. That's very cool. Where do I learn more? How do I figure that out? Or I know someone that needs that. Right? That's the kind of reaction you need. And that comes from iteration. Continually practicing and changing. When we went through Techstars, I think we had, I don't know what the final count was, but somewhere around 80 different versions of our pitch before demo day. And it's changed since demo day. But I will never forget, and I'm good at this shit, right? I've done this before. It's still fucking hard, especially doing it for yourself. I can help anyone in this room like that. When I try and do it for myself, it's hard. Because you want to say everything.
Tell you about that dude.
Right? You want to talk about all the wonderful things you're doing. And you don't want to miss anything because you're not sure what thing is that's going to really matter. And you can't. It's all about simplicity. And simplicity is really complex. Right? It takes getting rid of a lot of stuff. Right? What's the really critical thing to say first? So you have the opportunity to say the rest. It is constant work, constant. And you should always be tweaking it and testing it and watching the emotion and seeing how people react and trying different things until you get it down. And once you get it down, you say it over and over and over. So at any point in time, you can launch into your pitch. I have keywords and phrases for my pitch that in any conversation launch me right into my pitch. Like I said when I started, if someone breaks into your house or apartment at 3 a.m, shakes your shoulders and says, what do? You sit up and you fucking pitch. That's your job. It's not optional. It's not something you can delegate. And you do it for the life of your company. I convinced one time the global CEO of Deloitte Consulting that this is how it worked. We were repositioning the whole company. I launched, for those of you who don't know, I actually launched the Deloitte Consulting brand in the mid-90s. I was their managing director of global communications. I was working with the global CEO. And I was walking him through this, and like 3 weeks into it, he said, David, I am goddamn sick of it. I can't say it again. I said, Pat, I don't care. You have to keep saying it. Every phone call you have, every interview you have, every time you talk to your employees or your customers or anyone, you have to say it. And about 3 months in, he called me in. He had just finished like an interview with the Journal or something. He looked at me and said, I think it's working. I said, it's just starting. He was like, oh. But that's how it works.
Okay. So not everyone here is really in the position of pitching your business to an external market like an investor or at a convention or a conference. But this fits in really well with what we talked about in branding, and that is having a really clear idea. What is it that you offer? And using that to keep you on track as to the point of why you're doing this business. You know, we talk about the why and how important why is, but it's really critical. And even though you have all kinds of things that come across your desk every day in your business, kind of getting back to what is it? Why are you doing this? What are you trying to accomplish? How are you going to communicate that to the various parties that you need to, whether it's a customer, a supplier, a person at a convention or a conference of some kind? The idea that you can really clearly explain what you're doing and why, and what problems you're solving for your customers, I think will really set you free in a lot of ways. It'll ease if you have anxiety or concerns, it'll help you deal with that because you will have done the work to really think it through and be able to communicate it. Like he says, if 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody wakes you up and asks you to pitch, can you do it? Or is it going to be different every single time that you're woken up? So I like this. This is in our member resources under Techstars. There's extensive worksheets, stuff there that you can use to go further with this. I view it as synonymous with the branding stuff that we did that had to do with your message. You know, it's all related. It's all the same sort of thing. And even though this guy used a lot of crass language, one of the things that he said, which I really believe is true, people don't really care what it is that you do. They want to know what's in it for them. Why should they care about what you do or what you're trying to do? And I think the more people that you can get on board with what you're trying to do, the better and more successful you will be over time. And so that's really the intent of this this section. Any thoughts, comments at this point?
Dennis, I'm thinking, am I correct that for me, I'm not providing a service, and it's not definitely, I wouldn't say it's something that is that's solving a problem. So the power is in the story. You say that the connection piece for me, in my case, will have to be the story that pretty much drives the traffic and customers.
I think it's a combination of things. Well, you're a clothing brand.
Right.
You're somebody that's trying to communicate why they should buy your clothes and support your brand. So I'm assuming there are brand values and things that you are about that you want to communicate and attract like-minded people to your brand.
Correct.
So to me, that is a story, but it's also a purpose. You know, why are you doing this? And,
Gotcha.
and what do you hope to do with this? What, if you're successful, what does that mean? That you help, maybe it's a charitable interest. I'm not quite sure.
Mhm.
But I think, you're not a service, but you are a product. You have a product. You have a number of products. And those products, people aren't going to buy from logic. They're going to buy from emotion. And the emotion that you need to tap into, you've got to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I can guess. I might have an opinion, but you yourself have got to know that cold. Who is your customer? What is their characteristics? What pain point? It doesn't have to be a lot of pain, right? Buying a t-shirt does not require, the electric chair, right? But it's still, it's the same sort of thing. It's
Right.
this whole idea between, I always call it between fact and fluff, right? You have all these facts that are absolutely right. And then you have all this fluff and all these stories and guess what sells? It's not the fact, it's the fluff. You got to have both. And this guy's message is really, it's not really fluff, but it's about figuring out what will give you permission to tell your story to the prospective audience that you're reaching. And that audience will vary depending, it could be an audience of people who are good, possibly going to buy your product. It could be an audience of people who could influence people who would buy your product. Like, for example, say you were giving a talk at a retail buyers convention, if they even exist, I don't know. So I think the point is really understanding what makes somebody buy what you're selling and what's driving you to provide that to them and how you communicate the benefits of being associated with your brand.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. I think also for some of you, like I think of Karen and I think of Chris, you guys are in agricultural products in the case of both of you. But I think that you all have specific things that you do that could be communicated as well. Like maybe, I'm making this stuff up, but your Karen, your pecans have more love than any other pecan. They're the lovingest pecans that anyone's ever seen. And, and Chris might have the highest protein butter beans in America. I don't even know if that you can say that stuff without going to jail. But this is examples of taking stuff that you have and making a big deal out of it. What is it that you have that really sets you apart? It's not saying, well, I've got tractors, I've got plows, I've got people who pick. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. That's a given. But why are you doing this? What are you bringing to the world? What is the objective and what problem are you solving? And I say it goes for all of you, no matter what you're trying to do, if you really think about it. And if you go to the workbook, this is hard, as he said, it's the kind of thing where everybody feels like you got to spend a lot of time on production or on accounting or financial projections or, there's all these things, but I would argue that your brand story and your product placement, your positioning really is job one. That's really what you're going to hang your hat on. And so everything else will come from that. If you're not successful at getting people to hear your story or hear why you're doing it and how it helps them, then you're not going to be in business. You're not going to be able to do projections. You're not going to have to hire manufacturing and all of the above. It starts with the customer journey and the customer signing up with you to solve a problem that they have, that they perceive that you can solve. And it goes beyond the lowest price, the most convenient. There's a lot of other factors that people use for reasons to buy. He said in his presentation that the facts are used to justify after the purchase, not before, right? So they buy emotionally and defend intellectually or academically. And it's not the other way around. You cannot talk your way into somebody buying your product by reciting facts and details. It just doesn't work. And I think that we all understand that at some level. even though we may have comfort with doing certain things and discomfort with doing others, as he said in there, he's redone his 80 times in his 10-week class that he had with Techstars. See, that's a lot of time. And I don't think anybody in this group could say that they have tried 80 times to position their product or service. I'll bet you haven't. And you know, so we're lucky to have access to the Techstars. It's a really big deal to get accepted into Techstars. There's never been a company from Eastern North Carolina ever accepted into Techstars, as it so happens. But it is a good program, and they're nice guys. They let us use their stuff, even though it's a little bit weird to sit and watch videos. They're really good stuff. It's really stuff you can't get anywhere else, in my opinion. So I encourage you to, if you need to see these videos again or go through the workbook, you know, it's right there on our website under member resources. So any other questions or thoughts on this?
I was gonna say, Quindell, I think you should try to brand yourself, like I was saying to you over Instagram, because if I'm not mistaken, the Freedom Hill, that's the Freedom Hill of Tarboro. And a lot of
No,
people don't,
wait, I'm sorry.
yeah, a lot of people don't know the story of Freedom Hill, about that area. So what I would say is either start doing like little small, like documentaries, breaking and getting a rapper or a singer to make a song that goes along with that documentary, and then featuring the documentary, them wearing the clothes, explaining how important it is to get the knowledge out, but not to the regular adults, but to the youth. The youth is the key, you know, because a lot of times, like you're seeing right now, all over the country, basically on the 31st, they talked about the 100 years from Tulsa. A lot of people don't want to know about it because it's a stain on our history, but at some way you have to talk about it to make history better. So Freedom Hill, your clothing line, is a brand of coming out of that. So I see that as a means of kind of turning up, because you gravitate the music into the artist. So if you get some of these artists from the area to start wearing that in their photo shoots, you know, it might be on you to, you know, get an artist and do a photo shoot with him and say, hey, I think this design goes here, and say, hey, this is, and then you talk to him like, hey, you know, do almost like an interview, like, hey, I'm, you know, giving you this so you'll know what, when you're rapping and doing your music, what you understand what happened here in Freedom Hill, so that you can have more independence in your music and use it as that type of tool. So that was just my thoughts about that.
I think that's good.
Thanks. Thank you.
One of the things that Branson's inadvertently referring to is something called news hijacking. And news hijacking is a really smart way to drive traffic to your assets, to your website or your Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is. You know, obviously people are talking about Tulsa, and we'll probably continue to for some period of time, but that's an example. Hijack that story for your own purposes. It's in the public domain. It's not, you might have a completely different spin. You might have, you know, here's the story of the only person who made it out alive. You know, I don't know. There are different ways you could do it. You can make a funny story about some dog that survived and went on to lead a great life. I don't know. I'm making stuff up, but hijacking the news is really a smart way to, if you do it respectfully and in a way, to gain traffic. The other thing, and Branson's referring to here kind of indirectly, the idea of influencers, using influencers. And, you know, there are influencers like the Kardashians and others that we all know, but there are lots of other influencers at a much lower scale, if you will. They might be local. They might be, you know, I don't know if there's a mayor of your town. Maybe the mayor can wear your shirt. You know, there's lots of ways to use influencers. And in many cases, it'll be free or close to it. It might require giving them a hat or shirt or something. But I think the use of people that might have a little bit of a following, a little bit of an audience, especially with young people like Branson's talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of them have thousands of friends and followers, and you know, like Mr. Beast, you know, that's a whole nother league. But the point is, he built it, you know, purposely, and obviously knows what he's doing. But maybe there are people that you could hook onto that would help you build your brand. Once you're you fully flesh out what your brand's about, what it stands for, and people who support that and want to be part of that will hopefully join in your messaging in that example. And it applies to everybody here. You know, I think thinking creatively about influencers, you know, it might be your local food line manager, the grocery store manager in your community. What's wrong with having, kind of like Mr. Whiffle, remember him from the Charmin commercial? You know, have Mr. Whiffle on there, you know, have the local grocery store guy or some other person that might have some, people might know who it is or might get a chuckle out of it, you know, have them give you a little testimonial if they feel it's appropriate. There are a lot of creative things you can do for very low cost, and I encourage all of you, but you do have to do the work and really explain just what you're doing and why. And I think that's the part that no one can really help you other than you. You got to do it. You got to figure that out and dig it out. You know, it's like this story I read about Vladimir Horowitz, who was a really famous piano player. And he was playing piano at a party in Manhattan, a black tie social event. And this lady was sitting across from him while he was playing. And she goes, "I would do anything to play piano like you." He goes, "No, you wouldn't," and kept playing. And she said it again. She goes, no, I would do anything to play piano like you. And once again, he said, "No, you wouldn't." So she's now starting to get mad. She goes, no, you don't understand. I would do anything to play piano like you. He goes, "Okay, I've been playing for 47 years, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day to get where I am." And she goes, "You're right. I don't want to do it." But the point is, you know, you got to put in the work and figure this out. And you know, we don't really have the demo day concept figured out for this program, but I'd like to figure out how at the end of this you could communicate where you're at and what you've learned and how some of this stuff can help you. I think it's well worth thinking about and doing the work. And you know, you don't have to play piano like Vladimir Horowitz, you know, to be a success in life. Hopefully. Anyone else got anything they want to cover? All right. Well, that's all I got for today. And I thank you, as always, for listening in. And we'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same station.